hard, hard, hard. You gotta do it louder. That's good. That's good. Yes. There you go. Well, yes. Thank you, Mayor. So for those of you that haven't been to many of these meetings, as you're getting situated, we'll go over the consent agenda items first in the work session. We have speakers throughout the ceiling, so if you're having trouble hearing because it is a big crowd, try to move toward one of the speakers if possible. And council members, if you'll speak as closely into the microphone as you can, that would be great, so everyone can hear. And we are live streaming this meeting so that all of our viewers at home can hear everything. We do have a little bit of housekeeping because we do have a large crowd. Restrooms are through those double doors behind where the firefighters are standing. If you need that, we have exits here and back here in this room. So I will go over the, first we'll go over the mission statement, or the vision statement. We'll go with vision statement this time. That Belmont will be a vibrant, multi-generational community that incorporates small town charm and heritage with an entrepreneurial spirit. And I will go over the items on the consent agenda, and feel free to ask any questions about those. You have several minutes from your meetings in November. On November 7th, you had a special meeting, a regular meeting, and a closed session meeting. Unfortunately, the closed session meeting minutes are not available. We had some technology issues with the clerk's computer, so those will be ready for you hopefully at the next meeting. So you will have, we're working with Apex to get that fixed, but it's not fixed yet. So you had the minutes from the special meeting and the regular meeting on November the 7th, and the special meeting on November the 10th, and the workshop meeting on November the 14th. And then you've had a couple of these this year, but we've got a grouping of neighborhood streets that have been built to city standards. Our city engineer has reviewed them with our inspection staff and has verified that they do meet all of our requirements. And so the developers of the Belmont Crossing, the Belmont Town Square, the Morgan's Branch, and Phase 1 of Overlake and McLean neighborhoods have all requested that the city accept those streets for ownership and maintenance. And of course, we put those on our Powell bill map for NCDOT so that we get a little bit more gas tax revenue to help pay for the maintenance of those streets. We have another special event. This is the Tri-Gaston event on Saturday, May the 20th, 2023, from, I believe that's from 7:30 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. And that's primarily in East Belmont on the East Catawba Street corridor. And that will be on, again, on Saturday, May the 20th. We have two different annexation requests. The first one is the follow-up from your item last month. As we discussed last month, and for the benefit of the audience, we handle annexations in 3 steps. The first step is to accept the annexation petition and to authorize the city clerk to investigate the sufficiency of that petition. The second step, which is what you're being asked to approve tonight, is to accept the sufficiency statement from the clerk and schedule the annexation public hearing. And this is for the property, undeveloped property on Wilson Boulevard beside the Dent Wizard. And that public hearing would be scheduled for your January meeting. The second annexation request is for a property at 211 School Street in North Belmont, near North Belmont Elementary School. And this is for the first step in that process, to accept that petition. And then authorize the clerk to investigate the sufficiency of that petition. The next item on the consent agenda is approval of a resolution authorizing the use of American Rescue Plan Act funding for payroll purposes. And I emailed you that resolution this afternoon, and I put it out at your table. This is something that you requested during the budget workshop, and we talked about a month or so ago. And then we have an amendment to the contract with Martin Starnes and Associates to complete the fiscal year 21 audit. There's no additional fee associated with this amendment. It's just a time extension through this Friday, December the 9th. Since they're still working on that, they need to actually be under contract, under engagement. But I'll have some good news about that later in the meeting, so stay tuned on Since we're ending 2022, we need to be thinking about 2023, and you need to adopt a resolution establishing the meeting dates for both your regular meeting and your workshop meetings for 2023. These follow your normal patterns of the first Monday and third Monday of each month, except for when that conflicts with a holiday, such as in January. So your meeting would be January 2nd, but that's our New Year's holiday, so it'll be the following Monday, January the 9th. And then every year you appoint yourselves to various committees and boards, primarily external boards, because we've done away with the internal committee structure and we just hold workshops. But we've included the list of committees and boards that you're on for 2022. So if there's any changes, you can discuss that. And then we added an item asking for you to declare, for tonight's purpose, I'm going to call you Chief Hawkins. Chief Hawkins' badges and service weapons, now that he is Sheriff Hawkins, we want to honor him by letting him have his badges and service weapons. But that does require action by the City Council. Those are all the items that I have for you on consent agenda. I know that was a lot to go through in a short amount of time, but happy to answer any questions you may have about them. Okay. Anything you want to take off this agenda and put in January is great with me.
Yeah.
Yes, so you would just need to take that off. Just if you approve the consent agenda, just remove that one item.
I had a couple of questions about various items. With the acceptance of the streets in Belmont Town Square, I just want to point out that there's an incorrect name. I think it's correct in the warranty that the developer provided. It's Garrett Park Drive, but in the memo and the map, it's listed as Garden Park Drive. So I just want to make sure that we warrant the correct street name, which is Garrett Park Drive.
Garrett Park.
I would also, I don't think this is technically in that development, but Flannery Lane, where it comes out and connects with McLaren, if we could get a street sign there identifying those streets, there's no street sign. There's a stop sign, but not a street sign.
We will coordinate with planning and public works to make that happen.
On the School Street annexation petition, what is the background of this, if you know?
Shelley, would you like to answer that one?
The background is the property is owned by the adjacent property owner. They own the two parcels. The applicant is wishing to build an accessory structure on this parcel, the adjacent parcel, but it needs to be recombined and all fall under one jurisdiction. So again, the property owner already owns property within the city of Belmont. They're specifically requesting this in order to build a storage unit on the vacant property.
Okay.
That's in the county currently, yes.
Okay. My other question was, if you look at the title or the deed, it says that the property was conveyed to Brenda Kale, Jeffrey Kale, and Jerome Kale. Brenda Kale died. Jerome Kale and Andrea Kale have signed the petition, but I don't see a signature from Jeffrey Kale. So I want to make sure that everybody who needs to sign is signed. So that might be.
We will evaluate legal
Okay.
with regard to the application.
Thank you. My last question is the Martin Starnes contract amendment. Does the DBDA need to sign that like the Tourism Development Authority, given the issues that have arisen in identifying the DBDA as a component unit like the Tourism Development Authority?
Martin Starnes has not asked us to do that. They've asked the mayor to sign if the council approves it, and for the Tourism Authority chair to sign it.
Okay.
But there's no space for the DBDA.
All right.
Okay. All right.
And before we move on from the consent agenda, it looks like we have some elected officials in the back. So I'd like to welcome Judge Craig Collins and Senator Brad Overcash, and I believe I saw Judge Justin Davis
And Justin Davis is here too.
here as well. So, welcome. That's all that I have if there are no other questions.
All right.
I guess one more question about the school street annexation. Sure. But as far as like utility service is concerned, does this annexation have any impact on our food provide facilities to that parcel, or is another tricky up there?
No, sir.
Okay.
Unrelated question. On the meeting schedule resolution, at least the copy I'm looking at, both the years are listed as 2022.
Good catch.
yeah.
We can.
I spot checked the dates, and it looks like the dates themselves are
Okay.
If you approve it, we'll approve it with change to 2023.
Yeah, meeting date for 2023. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Mayor, that's all that I have for the work session. So you're welcome to call us to order whenever the council is ready.
Let's call the meeting to order. Jim, if you want to set the agenda,
I move to set the agenda.
Second.
all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The agenda is set. Jim, you want to do the invocation? Marty, you want to do the pledge?
Sure.
Okay.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessings you've bestowed on us and our community. And we pray that you give us the wisdom to make wise decisions. We thank those board members and officials who have concluded their service to our city. And we pray for those who are assuming new positions within the city that they conduct their duties with wisdom and integrity. And we ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right. We got a special presentation for Chad Hawkins here. Congratulations on being elected chief. Sheriff. Got a key to the city for you too. I'm going to read a proclamation here, Chad. Whereas we are today to express our appreciation to Chief Chad E. Hawkins and honor him for his distinguished career with the city of Belmont and dedicated service to the residents of Belmont. And whereas Chad E. Hawkins joined the Belmont Police Department in January 30th of 2017 as Assistant Police Chief and promoted to Police Chief on May the 5th of 2017. Whereas these years of service have been marked by exemplary dedication to the best interest of the community, and Chief Hawkins has worked constantly for the betterment of the Belmont Police Department, which contributes to the health, safety, and comfort of this community. Whereas improved the efficiency and effectiveness of police services by adopting relevant, available, and reliable technological solutions. Chief Hawkins implemented a digital forensics lab, Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, Advanced Law Enforcement Leadership Program, Community Policing Unit, Core Training Coordinator position, ABC Detective, and many others that contribute to the community and the police department. Whereas the Belmont Police Department was awarded the accreditation from the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, that's CALEA, under the guidance of Chief Chad E. Hawkins. Whereas Chief Hawkins has advanced the culture of wellness for all employees at the Belmont Police Department and has emphasized Belmont's recruitment, retention, and career development and training to make sure the agency is the best and sought out agency to work for. Now therefore, let it be resolved that on behalf of the entire City Council, we want to express our sincere appreciation to Chief Chad E. Hawkins for his loyal service to the City of Belmont and wish him continued success as he accepts his new role as Sheriff of Gaston County, adopted this day of December 5th, 2022. Congratulations. Good job. I'm going to give you a tour of the city too. And even though he's going to be leaving the City of Belmont, we're going to give him a key to the city as well. Sure.
Mayor, Council, Mr. Manager, Mr. Attorney, and the citizens of Belmont, I could not be more honored to stand before you tonight as serving as your Chief of Police for almost 6 years. A lot of people thought I was crazy when I left as Chief of Police to come here to be the Assistant Chief. And but thanks to my wife, she had a lot more vision in that than I did. And we were hopeful, and we knew that it was a step out on faith, and I could not have made a better decision. And not only do I want to thank this council and the mayor, previous council members, Councilman Foe, Gadd, and Shrift, for giving me the opportunity to be here to serve the citizens. I have the best staff at Belmont Police Department that anyone could ask for. And I'm going to tell you, that's the part that makes it very tough to leave, although I know we're leaving it in great hands with Chief Falls. But the citizens of Belmont have been very supportive of us. I can tell you, if you want to lose weight, Belmont Police Department is not the place to be, because the citizens constantly brings food in and leaves it and gets insulted if you don't eat it. So we have been very blessed to have such a community, and I've been very blessed to have a council and a manager that has stood behind us and given us the things. You heard that we become accredited. That means that we follow best practices in the highest for the City of Belmont. And that's not just in place with Chief Hawkins. That is something that the mayor and the manager has signed off on, that if Belmont starts falling behind, then they will be notified that Belmont is no longer meeting the standards. So that's something to put in place, and I'm extremely proud of that for not only the manager and the council. I think that's great for the citizens, because you want our staff to be the best. And I feel like we have the best staff that we could have here. So it's been an honor. It's been a privilege for me, and it's a very sad day. But what I would ask is for the citizens and the council is continue to stand behind Belmont Police Department, and I believe it's one of the best in the state. And this is a little bragging point for the city, as not only were we accredited in 2020 during COVID, and our staff was really having to work super hard. In 2021, we were used as a model agency internationally for following best practices. And I'm going to tell you, I'm extremely proud of that. And I'm proud now to be the Sheriff of Gaston County, where I do not have to end my working relationship with the City of Belmont. I can just continue it and continue to help the City of Belmont.
Amen.
So thank you, Mayor,
Thank you.
and council, and God bless our citizens and our staff. Belmont Police Department is second to none, I can tell you that.
Thank you. Stand up, give me a stand and go back. Huh? Yeah.
So now that Chad has left us as the chief and has gone on to be the sheriff, or to become the sheriff, Interim Chief Halls will now be sworn in as our permanent Chief of Police. So, Chief, would you and your family please come up? And Sheriff, if you'd like to come over.
This is my wife, Tabitha, my son, Cooper, my daughter, Dharma with camera. My daughter, Skylar, in the back with actually Dharma's baby. And then my son-in-law is back there somewhere with his other grandbaby. I couldn't do what I do without all of this.
Be fruitful and multiply, right?
Boyce, otherwise known as Boyce.
I do solemnly swear that I will be alert and vigilant to enforce the laws of the state.
I do solemnly swear that I will be alert and vigilant to enforce the criminal laws of the state.
That I will not be influenced in any manner on account of personal bias or prejudice.
That I will not be influenced in any manner on account of personal bias and prejudice.
That I will not support, or that I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith.
That I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and the laws of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith.
And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and execute the duties of my office as Chief of Police according to the best of my skill, abilities, judgment, and knowledge.
That I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of my office as Chief of Police according to the best of my skill, ability, and judgment, so help me God.
This evening, I am honored that Chief Paul's asked me. This is actually the badge that I wore, and I'm going to be pinning him. I have known Chief Paul's since childhood, and he has worked at different agencies around with me and for me. And when I brought him to Belmont as a lieutenant, 5.5 years ago, and he's been part of that. One other thing I forgot to mention: we've been pretty much fully staffed for the last 5.5 years, which is really unheard of in law enforcement right now. And if we do lose people for whatever reason, we have good stacks of applications and qualified applicants to come. And Chief Balls and the rest of the staff has been instrumental in that. And he has a lot of respect all over this county. Chief Balls not only served in different areas in law enforcement patrol stuff, but he's also been on the dive team, he's in the SWAT team, a sniper. So he knows the tactical side of it, and the administrative side of it. And so I'm very proud of him. So it's an honor for me to pin this badge on him this evening. No hazing.
Did you sign it Boyce or did you sign it Corky?
I actually signed it both.
Boyce.
So I stand here before you humbled and excited at the same time. I appreciate the opportunity you've given me. I appreciate your confidence in me, and I appreciate all of the support of staff, the citizens of Belmont. We have, and Chad, I'd like to say he hit the nail on the head when he said we have a great community who supports us, and he's true about the stuff that we get at the police department, because I've gained like 13 pounds in the last couple of months. But I'm super excited about the future. I can't say enough about how much support you've given us as a council and the mayor and Adrian as well. Our mission statement is to protect and serve with dignity, respect, and fairness, and we are going to continue that. Our mission is not going to change. We're going to continue to get better and build off of what Chief Chad Hawkins now shared, and through his guidance and his ability and his leadership. I think we've built an all-star team here in Belmont. We're going to continue to have all-stars. We're going to continue to hire all-stars, and we're only going to get better. And I'm really humbled. I'm excited, and I'm blessed to be standing here before you, and I look forward to the future.
Thank you.
Before I sit down, there's one more thing I'd like to do. Tyler, if you'd like to come up. And Sheriff, if you'd like to come back up. I'd like for you to be a part of this real fast. So we actually, as the police department, we wanted to do something for Adrian because you've done a lot for us. Your support and guidance and all your abilities have been by far really great for our agency. So we got you an award, a Distinguishing Service Award from the police department. I'm going to read it to you. To all whom these presents may come be it known that in recognition of the attainment and exercise of role of the city manager of Belmont and their personal devotion and service to the people of North Carolina and the citizens of Belmont whom they serve, the Chief of Police of the Belmont Police Department does hereby bequeath the honor and recognition of this occasion for service going above and beyond the call of duty hereby awarded to Adrian Miller for leadership, dedication, diligence, and dedicated service as the city manager of Belmont, North Carolina. Thank you for your many contributions and accomplishments to the citizens, community, and the police department to make Belmont a better place to live and work. In testimony thereof, on this date, the 5th day of December in the year 2022, in the city of Belmont, North Carolina, in the United States of America.
This evening is about y'all, but thank you so much.
All right. Congratulations, Adrian. All right. That leads us to our regular agenda.
Do we have other recognitions of board members?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. Recognition of board members. You're right. Environmental Sustainability Board, we've got Jennifer Portenberry, Doug Ehlers, and Sharon Johnson.
Come on up. Yep, if you're here, come on up.
Thank you for serving. Anybody else here? Doug, Sharon not here.
Sharon Johnson.
Must not be here. Okay. All right, next. Board of Adjustments, Jay Green and Neil Brennan.
Jay Green.
I know Neil Brennan's here.
Good evening.
We are working on your certificate. That was part of our
Next, we have Planning and Zoning Board, Christine Green. Christine here? No, okay. Main Street Board, Angela Street and Emily Rudisill.
There you are.
You guys have done a great job, too. How's your dad doing? All right. Now we can move on.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of items 3 and 6, which are the closed meeting minutes that are not available, the removal of item 18, which is the committee assignments we're going to address next month, and amendment to item 17 to correct the dates, as Councilman Seelinger pointed out.
Okay.
Second.
Good second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's move on. Public comment. We've got several people signed up. You have 3 minutes to speak. Ron Lovelace is the first one we have signed up. Huh? Okay. Hey, Ron. How you doing? Good to see you, Ron. That's all right, Ron.
Just some dignitaries on my way in, and they like to talk. Ron Lovelace, 411 North Main. If you want to run Adrian Miller out of City Hall, it's your right as City Council to do that. There's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. The right way to do it: tell Adrian and Belmont residents that's what you want. Say it to his face and tell us all the real reason why. Stand up and own it. Take responsibility for your decision. Mr. Stowe, I hope you'll excuse the use of this phrase since it's not directed at you, but be a man about it. There's a wrong way to do it. Come up with some chicken little nonsense as a pretext. Try to get what you want without having to put your name on it, without standing up and saying so. Try to avoid taking ownership or responsibility for your decision. Some of you here have chosen poorly to cowardly hide behind a pretext, and I will never understand why, and I don't want to understand. Why you would sell out to hold on to such a lowly, pitiful position as this is beyond me. You are the customer service hotline for the general public and nothing more. Like an offensive lineman in football, you're doing your job effectively when I don't have to hear about it, especially on TV. How do I know this rec center business is a pretext? Well, I've had to be sitting in this town for the last several years, and I've heard some of the most ridiculous tin-hat conspiracy stuff I can imagine coming from some of you. Not excluding the suggestion that money raised anonymously by a Belmont charity may have come from China via Hillary Clinton's email hack instead of, Kramerton. Or wondering in writing at the height of the pandemic if we aren't all lab mice in a grand experiment by big government and big corporations. So watch all that. You guys have us covered from all threats, real or totally imaginary. But the biggest building in downtown Belmont goes up right under your nose and you don't notice. Or you claim you don't know we spent more than $150 grand on it. Well, that's absurd. Look at the thing. It's right there. It's even more absurd considering you walk right past it to meet here every month, and the budget for the building you passed unanimously had $1.6 million just for site work, just to get the ground ready. You knew we were multiples of $150 grand the minute the first concrete footing was poured. And by the way, concrete is just another $1 million line item from your budget. You can't be both the cynical watchdog that constantly owns the libs and at the exact same time, the village idiot on the one issue that's actually relevant to us. No, you knew the audits weren't done, and you knew we were millions deep. And you agreed with the approach, actually, until you found it useful not to. That makes your faux shock and dismay over Adrian's leadership a pretext and humiliating to any man with self-respect. And you may get away with it. Nobody else in this town may notice. And God, I hope they have better things to do than to watch this episode of Jerry Springer you have turned my hometown into. But I'm here to tell you that one man did. And like it or not, your name is on this. And that means you own it. And you own what comes next. For shame, if you can feel it.
Thank you. Next, we have signed up to speak Amanda Memrick. Name and address.
My name is Amanda Memrick. I live at 104 Timber Ridge Road, and I'm here representing the South Hill Estates neighborhood. I know you've heard from me before, but I'm here asking each of you to exercise due diligence when it comes to the Henry Chapel development. As you know, one of the biggest concerns for my neighborhood is becoming a cut-through to South Point Road. I invite each of you to come to my neighborhood during the morning and evening commute to see the traffic now, then imagine the situation if 628 more homes, conservatively at least 1,200 more cars, join the daily grind. I'd also like to invite each of you to drive down the streets of my neighborhood and see my community in person. I'd be happy to show you around and show you why we don't want wider streets, bicycle lanes, and additional traffic. I encourage you to think of the public safety aspects of adding potentially 1,200 more vehicles to South Point Road. Yes, police, fire, and emergency vehicles will get to their destinations, but how long will it take them? Will those extra minutes navigating through the additional traffic gridlock mean a delay in responding? Every second counts in an emergency. Will the delay cost someone their home or even their life? There are environmental concerns too. This section of the Catawba River is listed in fair condition by the Catawba Riverkeeper Foundation. One area of concern is current land use practices. This section of the river scored low for urban, suburban, and rural runoff as well. The development site for Henry Chapel includes wetland areas as well as protected watershed areas. Consider the impact of a development this size on those natural resources. I know this is a by right development, but I also know that City Council is charged with representing the people and putting the interests of residents, not developers, first. You've heard the worries from surrounding neighborhoods. You've heard residents express exasperation about rapid growth and the city not being able to keep up with infrastructure. Please take a good, solid look at this development. Don't rely on studies paid for by developers to tell the complete picture. Look into the issues yourself and ask questions. Don't just be a rubber stamp. If City Council doesn't take a stand now, then when? Thank you.
Next, we have signed up to speak Erica Rowland.
Erica Rowland, 83 Vine Street. Hi, guys. So I'm here to talk about Airbnbs and short-term rentals. So I just wanted to put a face to the name. And a lot of people, I think, in Belmont think that short-term rentals are millionaires that have bought big houses trying to make extra dollars. I don't have billions or millions. If you'd like to give me some, I'll take them. So if you don't know, I live in Belmont. I went to South Point. Some of you, I graduated with your children. Some of you, your wife was my best friend in high school. So pretty much, I have Airbnbs and I manage them in and out of Gaston County, some also outside of different parts from Myrtle Beach to the mountains. So I kind of want to talk about the difference of what people think Airbnbs are and what they actually are. I'm not going to talk about what my clients, their statistics, but I'm going to talk about mine for the most part. I'm going to talk about the two that are closest to here and my own. The ones closest to here, I asked the owners if they were cool with me sharing their story and what they are. So one is a travel nurse. So she lives here not for 3 months at a time. So when she's not here, she's not living in her house. So she rents it out for what I call a short long-term rental. So she would rent it out to travel nurses. She's renting out to people that work at the hospital, that are building the hospital, stuff like that. The other one is her kids live here and her grandkids live here. She lives out of the country. And so she stays about 2 to 3 months, not at the same time here. And so she comes in and out. And when she's not here, nobody wants to pay for a house that they're not always at. So she rents it when she's not here. And I can't afford to buy a house in Belmont. That's a different story for a different day. Here we are. So how I pay for my rent is I rent one in a close town to pay for my rent here. And that is how I live in Belmont and rent my Airbnb. And I want to talk about that. It is about 3 miles from here, so I'll let you guess what town it is in. I think we talk about parking and partying and stuff like that. Today, my 94th rental checked in. I've had 0 parties. I've had 0 parking issues. I've had 1 guest complaint, and it was that a dog was barking. Out of all of the guest complaints I can have in 14 months and 94 rentals, a barking dog is the last thing I think is a problem we're going to have. So I don't know about you, but so for me, this is a mean of income. For me, I am a small town business owner in this town, as I know. So I work here in town. My father is right here. I am a handyman, as you would guess, by what I do. I also own Bun's Hot Dogs. We worked our first event the other day in town. So when we talk about adding parking and stuff like that and what we want to do and party rentals and everything, those are the things I want to think about. I can't add parking to my rentals.
Yeah, timely.
Cool. Have a great night.
Thank you. Next person, we have Zach. Speak.
Good evening, council, manager, mayor. Zach Guerrer, 621 Seacrest Avenue. The audio and video for the council meetings, my biggest pet peeve. I try and watch these from YouTube because I don't have time to be here every single meeting, and the audio and the video is awful. You got to turn the audio all the way up, and then all of a sudden someone coughs and you blow your eardrums out. So if we could spend some taxpayer money on some audio and video, that'd be great. Street trees. I know the city loves street trees. I personally don't like street trees. And I'll give you a couple of reasons why. One, we plant street trees. 10 years later, the sidewalks are busted, and we're spending taxpayer money trying to fix sidewalks. Or we're trying to get people to cut their trees because they're growing out in the street and they're hitting vehicles or they're blocking signs or whatnot. Or if you just drive down 6th Street today, Duke Energy is down there cutting street trees, butchering them because they're growing in the power lines. It seems foolish to plant these street trees. If you look at the street trees that were planted next to the middle school, I believe it was, every single one of them was sprayed with Roundup by Duke Energy because they're growing underneath the power line. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. The Central Park South project is going to affect a couple of my properties. I know when it first was proposed, they wanted to do gated entry, but the council was against that. I'm all for it. We don't need another cut through Seacrest and Ferris. It's not. The traffic going through Seacrest and Ferris is bad enough my kid can't play in the street. We don't need more traffic. So that'd be great if they could just put their gates up and keep. We can't get speed bumps. Let's get gates, something, because the traffic is nuts. When Main Street had that tree fall down, the amount of traffic coming down Seacrest was absolutely ridiculous. I couldn't even sleep at night. Short-term rentals. I think it's government overreach. I don't think y'all need to be regulating short-term rentals. I personally have property here in Belmont, and I don't feel like it's your place to get in my business. They're not causing a problem in Belmont. Staff did a study. They gave the planning board recommendations based off their study. There was I've got more complaints against my meth head neighbors than short-term rentals have in the last 10 years. There's no reason to be regulating short-term rentals. And the 2-cent tax, I believe that was Mark's thing in June, you gave us a 2-cent tax break as taxpayers. That was like $30. That wasn't a whole lot. If we could get maybe more tax breaks next go around, that'd be great. That's all I have.
You fit a lot into 3 minutes.
Thank you, Zach. Next person we have Craig Palmer. Craig, state your name and address. State your name and address.
Thank you. I'm Craig Palmer. I live at 103 Timber Ridge Road in Belmont. I have been in Belmont now for 25 years. I have, as of June, and I moved into the sleepy little town, and I just loved it. My wife and I, we raised our son here, went to all the schools here, and now it's become a metropolis. And now you're going to tell me you're going to put a road. We have a very small subdivision on my road alone on Timber Ridge Road, which is going to be an access point to the Henry Chapel subdivision. It's a very small road. There's 9 houses. And it's got a cul-de-sac right this minute. And whenever the developer gets ready, and there's going to be a housing development down there. I rise in opposition to the housing development at this moment. Very strongly, but I rise in opposition to it. I don't know what everybody in Belmont wants, but I know the people I talk to. And I have a feeling that the people you talk to, we don't want to be Charlotte. I know you've probably heard that, but we truly don't want to be Charlotte. We don't like the traffic. We don't like the overcrowding. And when people rose up earlier and said, we talked about the infrastructure. Again, we don't even have a sewage system for everybody now. Even now, what's going to happen when they develop this? And that's not to count the subdivisions that are going in further down South Point Road. I'm not going to get into the traffic. You know all that. You know it in your hearts that South Point Road is a traffic hazard. And it's going to get worse, and we really don't want that. We really and truly love Belmont. We are not in the city limits. You have annexed one section. I was going to talk about that because I never knew it got annexed. And I've lived there, as I say, for 25 years. It's been annexed, I think somebody said, for 10 years. I'm asking you all now. I understand that each of you, when you were elected, were asked, and I can't remember the exact words, and please forgive me because I'm fairly nervous, but you said you would not do ridiculous development. I ask that you honor that. Belmont's turning into Charlotte, in case you don't know. It's near ridiculous, and we would like to see it stopped. I wish you wouldn't even consider it. That's my request. Don't even consider that development. My last thing, I want to ask a question of the city council, and if you can't answer it tonight, please answer it later. If the developer meets all your criteria, crosses every T, dots every I, is it automatic that you approve his development? And that's all I have. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next we have signed up to speak Rob Presley. Is Rob here? There he is. How you doing, Rob?
Mayor, Council, thank you for allowing me to have a few minutes. I'm Rob Presley, 100 North Main, Belmont, North Carolina. I couldn't let Adrian have his last night here without thanking him personally and in public. As background, 16 years ago, I came to Belmont, was asked to consult on a new development called Eagle Park. I came here, spent a lot of time here, fell in love with the city, and ultimately made a decision to move here and was resident here for about 7 years. I served on planning zoning board for a couple of years and have been civically involved in many endeavors. The most recent is I'm chair of the Belmont Trolley project. I, as also background, firms that are developments that my partners and I have been involved in Belmont are Eagle Park, Adams Bluff, Hawthorne, Belmont Reserve, South Fork Station, the Harris Teeter Shopping Center, River West, which is completing development over in near Belmont Abbey, Aberfoyle, which is down the street. Most recently, I bought and completely rehabbed the Stowe building at the corner of Main and Catawba, and the Piedmont Lithium headquarters in the former Belmont Federal. I tell you those things because it's been a lot of work over a long period of time. And the one constant has been Adrian. I often call Adrian as city manager to pitch ideas. Many of the ideas I have are crazy and hokey, and Adrian talks me off the ladder, and so you never hear about them. Other ideas are, you know, Rob, some people will support it, some people won't support it, but you got to do what you got to do. You know, Belmont stopped being a textile town a long time ago. We're a changing community. You guys have a very difficult job. We are a growing part of a region that is one of the fastest growing regions in the country, and it's just tough. This is not the only town experiencing growth. My time on the Belmont Planning Zoning Board, my role I felt like was to make sure that the growth that we did have was well thought out. And I think that's your job is the growth's coming whether we want it or not. Not all developers are bad. I've tried really hard to focus on projects that have contributed back to the fabric of the community. And again, Adrian has been kind of a mainstay. Adrian has thought outside the box, recognized we're a community that's changing. And I appreciate his leadership and support. He's always been available when needed and has served the city well. My request of you guys as a council, as you start looking for a new city manager, look at the things that Adrian has accomplished that were wonderful for this community and find somebody that is equally talented and educated that can help guide us through our next phase of growth, because it is coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Next we have signed up to speak Paul Bruchon.
I'm Paul Bruchon. I live in the city. I'm a professional engineer. In this short presentation, efficient means using little construction material for a given square footage and using little energy to heat and cool. Comparisons are apples and apples, assuming equivalent installation whether the house is small or big. Based on family and house sizes, when I was young, these 3,500 square foot McMansions proposed for Central Park South would need to have 12 residents each to justify their size. I don't expect to stop this wretched excess, but I do hope to nudge builder and city planning attitudes a little. America has many strengths, but one weakness is our tendency to focus on our rights more than our responsibilities. When you build or buy a house that's both huge and has a grossly inefficient shape, you are affecting other people because your house uses energy from power plants, most of which pollute the air we all breathe. It's obvious that bigger houses are more expensive to heat and cool. House shapes need a little explanation. Here's a bird's eye view looking down of some house shapes. The circle is the most efficient, but it's not very practical considering that sheetrock, for example, is flat. The octagon is semi-practical. The square, like the homes at Belmont Reserve, is very practical and very efficient. The rectangle is not bad, but shapes like these, showing 3 on 1 sheet, these are wasteful shapes, both in materials and energy. It might sound strange to compare house shapes with motorcycle engines, but bear with me. If you look at a Harley-Davidson engine, you'll see lots of cooling fins that keep the engine from melting. The fins have a lot of surface area to transfer heat from the engine to the surrounding air. Now, back to houses. If you ask kids to draw a house, it will probably be simple. 4 walls and 2 roof surfaces. Regardless of size, such a shape tends to use little material and little energy to heat and cool it. These proposed McMansions are the opposite. They look like the designer is choosing a lot of perimeter and surface area to purposely lose more heat in the winter and lose more cooling in the summer. They are analogous to the motorcycle engine with lots of fins.
Okay.
If I counted right, the drawing of a Central Park South house shows 15 roof surfaces and 12 exterior wall surfaces. The rear dormers are not connected for efficiency, even though they're quite close to each other.
Paul.
I don't consider the project leaders evil, but they might be thoughtless. That's,
Yeah. Time is up. Thank you, Paul.
I hope the city will consider adding some building requirements along these lines, and I will be glad to help with
Thank you.
builders or city.
Okay, thank you. All right, that concludes our public comment. Next, we have MVP on Central Park South. Request to approve right by schematic plan for a new 11-lot single-family residential community.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Try speaking it. As read into the record, this is Major Development Plan 2022-03. The name of the project is titled Central Park South Subdivision. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yes.
So this is a request to develop a 6-acre parcel with a 11-lot single-family residential community. The subject properties parcel ID number is 126-852 and 302238. Existing zoning on the property is general residential, GR. The subject property owner is Alice Stowe Matthews. The applicant is McSpadden Homes. Now, as you are aware, the major development plan process is outlined in Chapter 15. This is a process that can only be used for projects that are considered by right. What that means is it's a project that complies with all the regulations and standards found within the zoning classification and found within the Land Development Code. In this case, the proposed project meets the threshold for a by right development because it exceeds the proposed, it exceeds the threshold of a residential subdivision of land into 8 lots or more. So what you see on the screen is an area map. Again, the subject site consists of 2 properties that extend from South Central Avenue all the way to Fairs Avenue. Here's a close-up and aerial photograph of the subject property. As you can see, it is pretty squared off on the front property adjacent to South Central, which is along the eastern property line. The second parcel that is located to the west is a little more irregular in shape. With regard to the environmental setting, the subject properties are vacant. They are mostly wooded, consisting of a mix of hardwoods and evergreen trees. The front parcel, which I'll refer to as the eastern parcel adjacent to South Central, is fairly flat. If you drive by there today, you'll see one of our wayfinding sign. It looks like a large lawn. As you move towards the second parcel to the west, about midpoint, the topography starts falling more quickly and, towards the west property line. Although it's vacant with some topography, there are no identified streams on the property. So with all projects, we evaluate the zoning of the area. So again, the existing properties are zoned general residential GR, which is identified in the light blue. And as you can see, the adjacent properties surrounding the subject site are also zoned general residential. There are some more intense residential zoning districts. To the east, there's some infill residential that consist of multifamily and smaller detached single-family developments, as well as NCR, which stands for Neighborhood Center Residential to the north. Nearby uses are consistent with the zoning classifications. They're primarily single-family residential detached homes. The subject property is about adjacent to the city cemetery to the north, and there's some civic uses in the area, such as First Presbyterian Church at the corner of South Main and South Central. Now, I wanted to take a brief moment to speak about the neighborhood setting, because it actually has the property's location exposes it to two different types of neighborhood settings. The eastern area, which is adjacent to South Central, the lots are larger in that area. We actually have 3 local historic landmarks that are considered adjacent to the subject site, to the north, south, and to the east where Stowe Manor is. So those lot sizes in that area are about a ½ acre all the way up to 3 acres in size. To the west, as the subject property approaches Fairs, the lots are a lot smaller. They range from a 1/5 an acre up to about just over a ½ an acre in size. So what you see on your screen, which is also in your packet, is the proposed site plan. This, again, is a 6.10 acre parcel. They're proposing 11 single-family detached residential lots. There is plenty of open space represented by the green area on the subject site, with a lot of tree save within those areas. They're proposing one major road connection. It's a 50-foot right-of-way that would connect or act as a connector between Central Avenue and Fairs. Now, I did want to point out that is a requirement of our ordinance, where possible, to connect to adjacent roads. Now, what this does is this connector road provides opportunity to expand our transportation network within the city. So when we do have a downed tree or some other incident on an adjacent road, it provides an alternative route for residents to get around. So as you can see, this road is acting as a connector. It will consist of the typical curb, gutter, 5-foot wide sidewalks, street trees, and street lights. The 50-foot right-of-way does allow for parking on one side of the road. This development is actually proposing an additional guest parking to the north. There's an additional 7 parking spaces within the area where the proposed mailbox kiosk is located. Performance standards. So with all developments, especially major development plans, we confirm that the proposed project meets or exceeds the requirements within the Land Development Code, within the General Residential Zoning District. The maximum density for this designation is 6 dwelling units to the acre. This project, proposed at 11 lots, would result in a 1.80 dwelling units to the acre. That's less than 2. Tree save area, they're required to provide 1.22 acres of tree save area. They are providing 1.28 acres of tree save protection area. Open space, they're required to have just a little less than a half an acre. In this project, they're actually exceeding the required open space by a whole acre. So they're proposing 1.45 acres of open space. The project as proposed exceeds the minimum lot width, parking pad depth, as well as setbacks. So as proposed, this development complies or exceeds the performance standards for the zoning district. With all projects, they go through our technical review committee. That is a committee that is made up of all the departments within the city. With regard to utilities, it was confirmed that there are city water and sewer connections available, as well as capacity to serve these proposed lots. They are required to provide 2 fire hydrants within the development. With regard to transportation, the proposed 11-lot subdivision does not meet the threshold requiring a traffic analysis. We did consult, however, with our consultant as well as NCDOT because we were concerned about the proposed access road location as it relates to the proximity of the major intersection of Keener and South Central. So we did consult with both, and NCDOT did confirm or agree with our consultant and staff that a TIA was not warranted for this project. However, NCDOT is restricting left turns out of the subdivision. So they can turn left in, right in, but only right out at the South Central location. We also worked with the applicant to shift the road within the community to the north, trying to move it further away from the Keener intersection, which has been done. It was shifted twice. Also, NCDOT requested an additional 10-foot wide area be dedicated to them for future right-of-way widening if it occurs on South Central. With all street frontages in our requirements, they are to provide curb, gutter, sidewalk, street trees, as well as a 5-foot wide sidewalk. I will share that with regard to no left turns out of the subdivision, if the project's approved, when we work with NCDOT and the construction plans, that's when they'll nail down the actual design of how to prevent that left turn out. Again, because this road connects between Fairs and South Central, there's plenty of opportunities to go in different directions. It won't hinder the operation of access in that subdivision. With regard to architecture, the architecture is fairly unique in including the placement of the proposed homes on the property. They are designed and placed on the properties to create a side courtyard for their outdoor use and enjoyment. So there's a focus on active outdoor lifestyle in the courtyard. The architecture that's proposed exceeds any requirements in the LDC with regard to material, as well as articulation and features. I know the development team is here, and they'll show you a brief video of the proposed architecture. With all major development review projects, they're required to hold one community meeting. The development team held theirs on July 7th at 6 p.m. at First Presbyterian Church. There are about 8 residents in attendance. The comments focused on tree protection and or a buffer along the south property line. I'll provide more information on that in a minute. Access locations, there were concerns about cut-through traffic through this community. Again, the city's ordinance requires connectivity to expand transportation options in the city. Also, a property owner located on Fairs at the western access point was concerned about screening and landscaping adjacent to the access road. He voiced that. The developer's response is they did agree to do some additional landscaping adjacent to the access drive there at Fairs. The developer actually did an additional study, a tree protection study, which is in your packet in attachment A, that took a closer look at best management practices that could be implemented to help protect trees on the subject property and the adjacent property to the south to ensure they weren't, their development of the site would not impact the trees on the adjacent property to the south. So again, that study with the recommendations is in your packet. You may note a black line that is along the south property line. That represents limits of disturbance. So one recommendation within the special study recommended shifting the houses to the north, which the applicant did do. The developer moved the road to the north and thus shifted the homes more to the north, allowing a larger buffer, and was able to create limits of disturbance that provides a little more buffer adjacent to that south property line. So that was above and beyond what our ordinance requires. So again, with the major development plan, the intent of the process is just to provide a fair and equitable process to all interested parties to allow a voice from adjacent property owners, interaction between the development team, city staff, planning board, and council. As the process is laid out, the schematic plan was reviewed and was completed by staff and found to be in compliance with the land development code. The community meeting was held. The appropriate project notifications were sent. The project went to the planning board, in which they evaluated the schematic plan and transmits a recommendation to approve as presented to the city council. The city council is now tasked with the review and consideration of the proposed plan before you tonight. So with that, in summary, this is a proposed 11-lot single-family residential community. As proposed, it complies or exceeds the requirements within the land development code for the general residential zoning classification. And again, council's action is to consider the project and render a decision. I stand by for any questions.
Thank you, Shelley.
Well,
yes.
So explain this tree protection study, because I looked at it and it's like, all right, you should do this, you should do
That's
that.
correct.
What is it really committing to do? It just seems sort of like very high level, so I'm not sure what it really in substance is doing.
It is high level. So the analysis was done to better evaluate approaches to development on the subject property and to, in order not to affect the roots and trees along the property line and on the adjacent property. So the developer has committed to implementing those recommendations found in the analysis. We did talk further about would they actually put any kind of tree protection on their property, and the developer could not commit to that in that area because, number one, the construction plans aren't done, so they don't have a good view of all the grading that's necessary. Also, he indicated that he didn't want to commit to preserving the trees on his property. Now, he's not touching those on the adjacent property, but on his property, because there might be a buyer that may not like that one tree that is on their property. They're purchasing, the grade will be different and if they have any concerns. So he just did not want to commit to any kind of preservation of the trees on his property.
And some of the, because some of the, I was also a bit confused because some of these trees are actually on the neighboring property to the south, right?
That's
so
correct.
they can't, now the roots from those trees might go over into
That's
the.
correct, and that's where the proposed limit of disturbance was designed on the plan to help address that issue, and other protections were outlined. So they have a beautiful, the adjacent property has a beautiful large magnolia tree that was evaluated, and I believe another oak tree that there's, the neighboring property owners have been in contact with the developer in discussions all along the way.
And has this study been shared with those neighbors?
It has been shared. They had a discussion via a virtual meeting. That's where there were requests by the adjacent property owner for additional commitments, such as, preserving the trees on the subject property that's planned for development, and the developer did not commit to that.
What is, so you say no left turn out of the development.
Yes.
I'm assuming that's no left turn onto South Central.
That's correct.
The other access point on Fairs, people can go left or right at that
That's
point.
correct. It's full movement.
Okay. What about this point that was raised during public comment about whether it could be a gated community? Did you analyze that?
We did. Our ordinance specifically prohibits gated communities. In fact, the developer's original proposal was for a gated community. Our ordinance prohibits it. They also proposed a cul-de-sac, again, part of the the multimodal approach in the city for a transportation network is try to create more connections, whether it's pedestrian or vehicles, to help expand our circulation system within the city.
Okay. And what is this? What will the speed limit be on this new road that's going to be constructed?
I believe citywide it's 35 unless we adopt something specific.
I believe it's 25, correct?
Is it 25?
In a neighborhood street?
Yeah.
25.
I would
I
assume
hear
25, I think. Would be
25, unless,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We haven't signed up to speak on his behalf.
Yes, I
Connor
believe the
McFadden.
applicant's representative is here along with the project engineer.
Hey, good evening, Connor McFadden, 9275 Egret Ridge, Belmont. I'm going to stand in for my father here. We're going to just give you a quick fly through of the architecture from the exterior of the home. So it's about 2 minutes. Here will be the front elevation view, and then we'll just let it play through from here. So that was just a kind of brief overview of the exterior. Can't promise you I can answer all of your questions, as I'm fairly new to this project, but if you have anything, I'll be glad to write it down and see if I can answer it, or at least get you an answer via email.
That's a nice piece of property.
We think so too.
Any other questions?
Just out of curiosity, you're showing swimming pools. Is each house going to have a swimming pool?
Not each house will have one. That will be an option, but it's not part of every single home.
Okay. Good. Any other questions?
Oh, go ahead. Just a quick question on the additional parking that you have closer to, I guess that would be Joe Stowe's property. Is that just for like overflow if you have visitors and stuff like that? And how many, is it 7? Is it 7 spots?
And your intent here was for lower density
Correct.
development, is that correct? Because I notice you're well under the required
Yes.
dwelling units per acre.
Absolutely.
Because how many could be in this area?
We were an acre under, so certainly a lot more.
So you could have up to 6 dwelling units per
Mhm.
acre. Now, I will share that we have worked with the development team, actually, the project started during the pandemic. And so the project has evolved based on feedback, such as against the DOT wanted the roads should be further to the north. Well, then that limited the amount of lots that could be created along the north property line. So there's been various factors that have affected the ability of providing more lots on the development. And of course, the development team, this owner that came in with this great vision actually about 2 years ago and knew what he wanted to create. So we've just been working with him to try to keep his vision and meet all the other requirements. The developer, I have to say, have kept in touch with the property owners to the north and the south, and has committed to continue to do so, especially with regard to landscaping along the south property line. So discussions are going on with the protect the trees along that area.
And just the only other question that I have, so, and I know you discussed there, you mentioned that you talked with the other department heads. We don't see any issues from our first response from police, fire, ambulance, or anything like that?
That's correct. The project went through technical review committee a couple of times. We even did some further analysis with the Belmont Police Department because we did get some email comments from homeowners on Fairs about speeding on Fairs Avenue, concern there, and I believe the analysis came back that there wasn't really an issue with speeding along Fairs.
Thank you.
So you're in excess in open space by about an acre, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, other than the courtyard on the property, is there any other exterior living spaces, or is it all in the courtyard?
There's a small backyard behind the house as a buffer, but that's about it.
Okay. And Shelley, the DOT did sign off, they're recommending the right turn only?
Yes, the right out only on that South Central.
Okay, so that is going to happen.
Yes, that is be a condition of their driveway permit to develop this. If this is approved, they are going to restrict the to right out only on that intersection.
All right, and I think you also said that under the zoning, 6 units per acre could be allowed on this?
Yes.
In the density? Okay. I don't have any other questions. Does anyone else on council have anything you want to put forward?
You said there's a sidewalk on Central. Is that just along the?
There's no existing sidewalk.
Right.
But there will be with this project. Now, what we would hope is to partner up with the city because on this side of South Central, there's a gap for a couple of lots, but there is a sidewalk closer to the church, and it follows a couple of properties. So we'd love to be able to identify these projects with make that connection with someone who wants from this neighborhood, the same side of the street, all the way up to the church.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the
Well,
agenda.
we gotta, I'll make, if there's no further discussion, I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Next is public hearing on short-term rentals. Request to amend various chapters of the LDC to incorporate regulations for short-term rentals in Belmont.
I'll move to go into public hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are in public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Text Amendment 2022.02, short-term rentals. And this is a request to amend various sections of the Land Development Code to allow for short-term rentals in Belmont. So per the Planning Board's direction, staff prepared 2 drafts for this review and consideration, and Planning Board transmitted draft 2 to City Council, so that's the one we'll be reviewing tonight. These amended sections include chapters 2, 5, and 6 of the Land Development Code.
I have a question right off the bat. I'm sorry.
Oh, yes.
You said to allow for short-term rentals. There are already short-term rentals in Belmont, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
But we don't have any kind of definition or
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so for some background, this initial discussion began with you all at the July 18th workshop. So we received your direction to work with the Planning and Zoning Board on this project. Yeah. Okay. So during that time, staff posted a community survey to obtain public feedback on the matter. This was open from June 15th to July 12th, and we received 464 responses on that survey. We took this to Planning Board initially August 18th for the initial discussion, and that led to a special meeting because the Planning Board wanted to hear all of the public comment. So that was a special meeting held on September 20th, and we had about 22 people of the public come out and give their public comment. Following that, this went back to Planning Board on October 20th as a discussion item. Staff presented the survey, the public comment, and more research, and the board was pretty divided on how to proceed with this, so they directed staff to write 2 ordinances. One was a definition and allowing this in all zoning districts, and then draft 2 was identical, but there were extra performance standards included. This was on your City Council and Planning Board joint workshop agenda, but there was not enough time to discuss it. So the last time this was discussed was at the Planning Board meeting on November 17th, in which the board approved draft 2 with some modifications. So we've had a lot of meetings about this. But just a reminder, as we're talking about short-term rentals, there are existing mechanisms in place for regulation. So we have an existing parking ordinance with regulations within our land development code. We also have a noise and trash ordinance within our municipal code. We have building code, which is enforced by Gaston County, as well as fire code. And then on top of all of that, there are homeowners associations regulations. These tend to be more stringent. So if there are concerns regarding short-term rentals, a lot of the times the homeowners associations will take stricter actions. So the proposed draft before you tonight includes a definition of short-term rentals. So our ordinance currently has no definition. So staff has included that in this draft. We also have modified the bed and breakfast definition to include the word lodging. So we talked with Gaston County Building Code about how they consider short-term rentals versus bed and breakfast. Basically what they said was short-term rentals tend to fall under residential building code, while bed and breakfast or inns fall under commercial building codes. Typically they have signage or staff that works there, culinary, commercial grade kitchens, things like that. So that's how we what we wrote these definitions based off of. In Chapter 5, there's an additional word that says including short-term rentals when it comes to residential uses. We did not change the current lodging use in Chapter 5. So this is in Chapter 6. So this is the actual performance standards for short-term rentals. So staff has worked with Planning Board to come up with these performance standards. These include a zoning permit, which we are still working on finding a determination from legal on whether or not this should be allowed or not. I know that there's been some history with some court cases in the state. Therefore, if you look, that's item B. So if you go down to item C, this also refers to a zoning permit. So if we go the route of taking away the zoning permit, I recommend alternative language for item C, which would just basically scratch zoning permit out and include just emergency contact information posted within the unit. Following those two items, we have included no signage just because these are not residential uses, so there should not be any kind of sign promoting or anything like that. The short-term rental tends to be more for commercial uses. We have prohibited events or gatherings such as weddings, corporate retreats, etc. We have included parking regulations, which it aligns with our chapters 3 and 9 of our land development code. And then we have included a sentence in G that basically just says that any short-term rental needs to comply with any local and federal and state laws, including building and fire code, etc. So this was considered at the November 17th Planning Board meeting and approved with modifications. So the Planning Board discussed draft 2 with the modifications. They wanted to add annual zoning permits, but after further discussion and review, staff has scratched that because that could be considered a registration, which the state has prohibited us not to allow. So staff has taken that out of your draft, which is in attachment D of your report. The Planning Board also suggested the modification of adding language in G of the performance standards to identify the local authority having jurisdiction related to fire and safety. They were specific about the language in which they wanted. They did find that the proposed text amendment is a reasonable request in the public interest and consistent with the goals of the comprehensive land use plan. So with that said, I ask that the City Council receive the Planning Board recommendation, public comment, and render a decision. As always with text amendments, the options are to approve as presented, modified, or disapprove, and then 2 findings must be met: that the text amendment is a reasonable request in the public interest and consistent with the goals of the comp plan. So again, just again in summary, I'll just add that because I think this might be where the conversation leads. I just caution, or I guess caution number B, or letter B, I guess, just because of the uncertainty of the zoning permit. And then with that, we would just need to review item C. So
and this is just a general question to council and whoever, should we potentially stay clear of the zoning permitting? I mean, if we don't know, there's no reason to put us in any type of liability.
I raised this issue with Parks because I have read the Wilmington case, which is the case that dealt with this, and there's a statute, and I don't think permits. What it does say is this is what the statute says, which is 160D 1207. In no event may a local government do any of the following. 1, adopt or enforce any ordinance that would require any owner or manager of rental property to obtain any permit or permission under Article 11 or 12 of this chapter from the local government to lease or rent residential real property or to register rental property with the local government. So that's the general prohibition. But then it says, except for those individual properties that have more than 3 verified violations in a rolling 12-month period, or 2 or more verified violations in a rolling 30-day period, or upon the property being identified within the top 10% of properties with crime or disorder problems as set forth in a local ordinance. So my interpretation of all that is we cannot, I think if we require a permit, that runs a blanket permit for everyone, that runs afoul of the statute. But we can require a permit, and what a lot of my sense, having attended a lot of these meetings and heard the discussion, having heard what the planning board members were concerned about, I read this as you can require registration or permitting if the property triggers a sufficient number of violations, which is what a lot of people are concerned about in the first place. So I think we can say that if you have, you know, we track the language of the statute and say a permit or registration would be required in that instance. But in terms of a blanket permit, my personal take on reading the case law and the statute is that we would run afoul of the statute. But I'll.
Do you concur?
You can't require residential property to be registered for rent, and you can't, according to statute, require a loan permit unless it meets one of these exceptions.
Right.
So any kind of, I'd recommend that you eliminate registration or zoning permit requirement unless it meets one of the exceptions in the 160D 1207C.
In this question, did planning and zoning board or staff have a different interpretation on the statute? Because it is in what you're presenting.
So I guess planning board was pretty split on what requiring the permits versus not. Staff read a summarized version of the Wilmington case from the UNC School of Government, and there was certain language in there, but I think it was recently pointed out that was actually before the case determination was finalized. So I guess we were kind of looking at older information, if that makes sense. So I think what we can do with this is we have other performance standards within our ordinance that we don't necessarily issue permits for, but we have these. So if there is any kind of violation or complaint, we have these to kind of fall back on, such as home occupations. We don't issue home occupation permits, but if there are any kind of violations or if people need them for specific paperwork, we can do that.
Right.
So that is kind of how we've now considered it after diving deeper into this permit versus not permit conversation.
I would point out that a number of the other requirements there, like specifically the parking space requirement, are specifically allowed by the Wilmington case, as long as they're not sort of entwined with a registration or permitting requirement. So I think B and C are really the only ones that, since they reference permitting and or registration, would be problematic. I think all the other ones would be, they're either within Wilmington's revised ordinance after the court case or specifically authorized by the case itself as saying, yes, you know, these are not in violation of the statute.
Wilmington kept its statute except they eliminated the registration permit requirements. So if you're inclined to rule favorably on the remainder, then you approve the modification. Motion would be.
Just for one more clarification, this is probably towards either Adrian or Chief. Do we have, I think we had talked about it at a previous meeting, but I mean, is this a high concern? Do we have a lot of calls for any type of Airbnbs or anything like that? No parking issues or anything that are major?
At the beginning of this, we worked with the police department, and in the course of 5 years, there were 5 calls, and they were related to property damage. One of them was a hit and run. They hit a mailbox, so not a human, but a mailbox, and that was it in 5 years.
Oh, in 5 years?
In 5 years.
Oh.
5 calls in 5 years.
I mean, I understand some of the concerns. I think there was a NBA draft party at one location, perhaps that irritated some people and was a large gathering. But you know, I feel like the exception contemplated in the statute. You know, if there are, and we've heard plenty of comments from people that, well, you know, Airbnb itself has higher standards than what this, you know, because if you did X or Y, like you wouldn't need to wait for the city to do something. Like Airbnb would revoke your, you know, I think if we include the exception language of the statute, that goes toward, you know, you get a violation, then you're on the naughty list, and you know that would address those concerns while still staying true to what state law permits.
So I think you said you needed 2 violations.
It's 2 violations within a rolling 30-day period or 4 violations in a rolling 12-month period.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like it's really targeted towards like problem
Yeah.
properties.
And
Yeah.
we have other ordinances, our noise ordinance would protect just as a thing to do it. So
Right.
now we had 2 different situations. One that we were a part of, we had a Halloween party, and we got called out on that. The band was too loud. Then we had a Overlake party, and they just started until about 2 a.m. and opened windows. So we had a problem then. But in 27 years, we had slowed down, or we had a number of events and parties. We had 2 situations where the police came.
Yeah.
So that, because our noise ordinance kind of takes care of the majority of the issues that I run into.
I had just a question, because this is a significant discussion at the planning board, was including a short-term rent. Well, first of all, let me ask, this definition that you propose, is that fairly standard definition?
Pretty much. I mean, everywhere has, give or take, the same language.
Yeah. But the discussion was whether short-term rentals belonged under residential or lodging. Can you speak to that and why you chose to put them under residential uses?
Sure. So we talked with Gaston County. So Gaston County is the one who handles and enforces and reviews for building code. So what we did was we talked with them and asked them how they classified short-term rentals. And they said that as of right now, it is under their residential building code. So we just wanted to align with Gaston County.
When you say as of now, does that imply that they are looking into other options?
As of right now, they are not looking into other options, but I think just as short-term rentals, I guess, become more prevalent in the county, that, I mean, we all could relook at this, but that's just.
Yeah. What's the significance of categorizing it as lodging versus residential?
So if you do it as residential use, are you talking about for zoning or for building code or the definitions? I guess let me ask that first.
All of the above.
All of the above. Okay. So we again wanted to align with their definitions, because if they considered short-term rentals as a commercial use, we felt as though it would align more with a bed and breakfast, like due to the staff member there at the front desk, signage, more parking, staff parking, things like that. And that's not exactly the nature of the short-term rentals that we're seeing. Yeah. So we just wanted to be in line with what was already happening at Gaston County's level.
Okay. But it doesn't change like any of the tax implications or anything like that. It would still be under like hospitality. They think it was like a hotel or hospitality tax.
It's an occupancy tax, as far as I'm aware, yes.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for Peyton? We have a motion to come out of public hearing.
Motion to come out of public hearing. Do we have public comment?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Good question.
Public comment.
Is there? Did anyone sign up?
Nobody signed up for public.
Nobody signed up.
Okay. No. Then let's go ahead.
Did someone second?
Yeah, I motioned.
Did someone second?
No.
No.
Richard seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Oh, I thought you said I'll second.
I'll say.
Yeah.
Well, we
made the
somehow
motion,
managed to
Richard
come out of public hearing.
All right.
I said we somehow managed to come out of public hearing.
Yes, we did.
Yes.
We are out.
Yes.
All right.
Did we vote?
No, now we have to vote. Now.
Consider an ordinance approving zone text amendment for short-term rentals, amending various sections of the Land Development Code to incorporate regulations for short-term rentals in Belmont.
Let me go ahead.
Well, did you have any discussion, or I was gonna? All right. Well, I will move to approve as modified with the removal of any reference to a permit except for as allowed by North Carolina General Statute 160D 1207C.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Whoa.
Yeah, I just have a comment to it. So just so I can understand this clearly, it really doesn't change anything today, right? I mean, we're just clearly defining and putting terminology as it pertains to the Airbnbs. Is that correct? Because we're not making them get permits. Right. Correct. Correct. Which sounds like they've already been meeting them because we don't have calls. So that's just kind of what I'm trying to allude to.
And if they don't, then they'll be on the
And I think that gives us adequate coverage in case, just as a point. So that's all I have.
Yeah, I mean, it seems fairly modest, and I think kind of, as far as like what I think we're trying to do with this, as far as just sort of very light touch, I think this strikes the right balance.
Okay. Yeah, call for a vote. Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All opposed? No.
I also move to find that this text amendment as approved is consistent, is reasonable in the best interest of the public because it aligns city land use regulations in compliance with state law, and that it is consistent with the comprehensive land use plan goals, number 1, land use, and number 2, economy.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Spoken like an attorney.
Good. Otherwise, I'd be in trouble.
Next item on the agenda, we have a public hearing on a Roper Street subdivision, and Parks, I'll turn it over to you.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Public hearing it is.
We've had these multiple times now. For the audience, this is a quasi-judicial proceeding. It's a little bit different type of proceeding. Other things are legislative in nature. This is more like what you'd see in a courtroom. You have parties, witnesses, evidence, sworn testimony, cross-examination, closing remarks. But we don't follow the strict rules of evidence, but we do have special findings that have to be made in order for the permit to be granted. I will ask how many are going to be sworn? 1, 3, 2. Well, that doesn't matter. Okay, I think. Let me swear it in. Before we proceed, I'll need to ask some preliminary questions to the council to make sure that we have an unbiased panel. Since you serve as both judge and jury in the proceeding we're about to have, so first, do any of you have any financial or pecuniary interest in the outcome of the proceeding?
No.
Any of you have any family or business relationship or close association with the petitioner, Andrew Lambert?
No.
And do any of you have any reason why you would be unable to render a fair and impartial decision based solely on the testimony presented?
No.
Having heard unanimously, this panel is now duly constituted. One of the things we've tried to talk about a little bit is streamlining this proceeding, and we have a little bit of help recently from the Court of Appeals, and I need to just instruct quickly on that. And it is a case called Dumas Charities versus City of Fayetteville, and it was a March 2021 case. And it talks about if the petitioner presents factual evidence and it's sufficient for you to make all the findings that you're familiar with. We have 3 in our ordinance. Then, if there's not any not any substantial, competent, or material evidence against the petitioner, then the court says that the burden of production automatically wins if there's no counter evidence, and the city council lacks authority to deny the application. So what that means is, if there's no objection or no protest, contrary evidence, it's factual, material, substantial, then you're required to grant the permit. So in this case, we're going to test this out a little bit. We're going to hear the testimony of the staff and accept the staff report. If you're satisfied that it touches all the required findings that you're making, we'll also hear from the applicant's counsel. But if you do that, then this court has said you're required to issue a permit. So I'm telling you this because no one signed up to speak about this. Right. So I believe we'll follow the purview in this case.
But we still get to hear from Mr. Russell, don't we? Oh, good.
Maybe not much. He might reserve cross-examination.
Okay.
Let's see. Anything else we need to say before we hear staff report? Y'all have any questions about this new case? We still have to go through the proceedings. One last thing, Councilman Evans, you'd like that all that is required in ponderance of evidence is not substantial, but more than a scintilla of evidence. So I think you'd like that term.
Yeah. I think Wake Forest is in the Scintilla Bowl in a couple of weeks. Yes. Yeah.
In the past, rather than asking a series of direct questions and testimony, we've allowed staff to give a narrative report and to cover everything we need to follow up we can so you can see.
Thank you. As read into the record, this is Special Use Permit 2022.03 Roper Street Subdivision. So this is a request for a special use permit to allow the subdivision of one existing lot totaling 0.98 acres into 3 67-foot wide lots. So according to our ordinance, section 5.2.2.4 of the Land Development Code, infill lots that are proposed with lot widths less than the average widths within a 300-foot buffer or one block length are subject to the approval of a special use permit. So in this case, again, the applicant is proposing 3 67-foot wide lots when the average within a 300-foot buffer is about 82 feet wide, and at the average within one block length is 75.72 feet wide. The applicant is Andrew Limberger with Andrew Limberger Builders LLC. Unfortunately, he's not able to attend tonight, but his attorney is present, and who is representing this case is John H. Russell Jr. with Mullen, Holland, and Cooper. So the site is located at 119 Roper Street, and for the record, this is PID 183620. The zoning is general residential, and the acreage is 0.98, so almost an acre. The lot is currently vacant, flat, with a couple of trees on site. So looking at the lots in the surrounding area, there's quite a range when it comes to lot widths. The smallest lot width within this area is a 50-foot wide lot, and it ranges all the way up to 225 feet long. The lots just directly across the street are the 50-foot lots, while looking at lot sizes, there's a wide range between about 0.13 acres all the way up to 0.85 acres. As for the proposed site plan, there are 3 proposed lots with lot widths of 67 feet. This comes out to be about 1/3 of an acre, depending on the specific lot in which you're looking, and the applicant is proposing single-family detached homes on these properties. So this project went to the city's technical review committee, TRC. So emergency services looked at this property, including the fire and police departments. They had no concerns regarding this project. The city engineer also reviewed this project and confirmed that there is adequate water connection availability along Roper Street. As for sewer, there is no city sewer available. However, the Board of Adjustment did grant a variance case 2022.01 back in April of this year, to allow this property to be served by city water only and no city sewer. So this was a variance for relief from Chapter 3.13 of our Land Development Code. The city also did receive that septic systems would be available and adequate to serve 3 lots on this property if approved. As for the comprehensive land use plan, this identifies this area as a suburban neighborhood. Therefore, the land use is dominated by single-family detached homes in moderately dense neighborhoods. This also may include parks, golf courses, or institutional uses. Special use permits are required to meet 3 findings. The findings, as read into the record, that means that the use meets all required principles and specifications of the code and any adopted land use plans. The proposed plan, if developed according to the plan submitted and approved, will be visibly and functionally compatible to the surrounding areas. And the use will not materially endanger the public health or safety and will not substantially injure the value of adjoining property if located where proposed. So during staff review, there are some considerations that we ask the council to review during their consideration. So staff has added some conditions of approval. Usually these are pretty generic when we're doing special use permits with subdivisions, but we have included the applicant shall process a minor subdivision plat in compliance with section 15.3 of the Land Development Code. Residential units shall be connected to municipal water as approved by our city engineer. Single-family residences shall not be duplexes unless in compliance with all pertinent ordinances. Staff did alter this condition. It is different in your packet. We initially just had the residences shall not be duplexes, but after further review, we added unless in compliance with all permanent ordinances. There are just some different regulations for duplexes, so we just wanted to make that clear. For the 4th condition, the applicant shall adhere to the erosion and sediment permit plan approved by Gaston County throughout the entire development process. And the final condition being special use permit shall be valid for 1 year. So with that, I was asked that my staff report and presentation be entered into the official record, and I'm standing by with any questions.
I just have one,
Yeah.
and it's in relation to the sewer. So essentially, we can approve it based off of just water. There's no liability to us coming back later and needing to hook that up to sewer?
So,
or how does that work?
Yeah, so just some history on this property. Back in April or March, whenever the application was submitted, the applicant went before the Board of Adjustment to be allowed to basically be on septic. So within our general residential zoning district, we require, per our land development code, that homes be connected to city water and sewer. However, there's a lack of sewer in the area, and so the Board of Adjustment granted the variance due to the hardship of this property and allowed septic to be on this property.
And I will confess, I overheard some discussion. That variance, how many lots was that for?
For 2.
Okay. Okay, so we don't have to deal with that in any motion or finding. Okay.
Since this is unusual, we don't normally have septic in the city. Has the developer checked to see if that land works? Because the region we live in, that's a lot of times that's not happening. Have they checked that at this point?
Yes, ma'am. I have the email from Gaston County.
Is this behind Goshen?
Yes.
It is?
It is.
Does Goshen have city water and sewer?
I believe so, but I would need to confirm that.
Okay, so you just said there's no sewer in the immediate vicinity. I've got to assume that Goshen probably is hooked up to sewer. In the event that sewer were going to be added to this property, who would bear that cost?
The developer.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Mr. Russell, I know you like to talk. City Elliott. And you want to explain the unusual circumstances.
Be glad to do that. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to see you. First of all, John Russell here for Andrew Lineberger. Some of you may have heard Andrew was at the hospital most of the afternoon with his son, who apparently had a bad reaction to some medication that he took. So he's released, I think, as of about 30 minutes ago. Everything's good, but they took him home. And so I'm happy to answer any questions, but Andrew asked this. We tried to get on the November agenda. This had been around for a while, but couldn't make that due to how busy you all have been. So Andrew asked if I could go ahead and present this. Particularly, we've been working with staff. I think a lot of this is fairly straightforward. So moving on, a couple things I did want to introduce. We've got a couple exhibits just to make sure the record is clear, and I'll pass this out. The first one was not in the staff report, but Peyton had it in her in the PowerPoint, which is the acreage. So some of the times when we're working with staff on the special use permits, we'll look not only at the width of the properties, but also the acreage. When you're looking at the finding of fact number 2 that you have to look at, which is functional compatibility with surrounding properties, one of the things that staff likes to look at is what are the size of the lots that you're subdividing. And you'll see, and I think Peyton referenced this, these lots all are 0.31, 0.33, 0.38 acres. So when you look at that, compared particularly to the lots across the street, but also up and down, the one that got cut off is a 4 homes on a 0.67 acre subdivision. So there's 4 homes on, not subdivision, on a 0.67 acre lot. So this is very compatible, in fact, slightly larger than the lot size that's around the street. Another thing that may be of relevance is, you know, this lot could be subdivided in, as a matter of right, into 2 lots without running afoul of our lot width requirements. So if you cut it in half, you could certainly get more than the average of the 1 block length or the 300 foot. So really what the applicant is asking is to be able to add 1 additional lot. And that lot is very compatible with what's in the neighborhood, both in terms of lot width and size. The second document goes to the third finding, which is the valuation. This is a report prepared by a local appraiser, Miles Hamrick. Typically, when we come before you, we try to have at least some documentation as to valuation. One of the elements or the findings we have to show is that the proposed use will not substantially injure the value of the adjoining properties. So what Mr. Hamrick's done is look at other infill subdivisions around the city, looked at Johnson Street where Mr. Lineberger has built, Burns Mitchell Road where he's built, and his conclusions on the first page that this will, I think some of this is a little bit, you know, we sort of know that, but we're still required to at least put some evidence in front of you, so that's why we do this, and we've done it in different forms in different cases. So that goes to the third finding. The other thing I will say with respect to the third finding, and Peyton referenced this, is that the TRC meeting, which includes representatives of police and fire, they are asked, are there any concerns with respect to the use being a material danger to the neighborhood, the residents who live and work there? And so we've kind of been working with staff on these projects to say, can you please have police and fire addressed that issue in the TRC meeting, and as Peyton referenced, they did that. We ask, are there adequate services? Does the use present any material danger to concern from either the police standpoint or the public standpoint? Number 2, and number 3, are there any recommendations or comments that you would have with respect to the construction or use of the property? And there were no concerns presented by police and fire representatives. So basically what I'd say is that the reason that we bring these documents is we want to make sure we do meet the burden by more than a mere scintilla, as Mr. Wilson said. I think we do in this case. There's no contrary competent evidence to oppose that, and so we think the project is appropriate and would ask you to approve it. Be happy to answer any questions. With respect to the sewer issues that you asked Peyton about, there are, I think, a couple streets. So you've got Roper Street and then one more street and then Goshen Presbyterian's on the other side. The adequate sewer, I think the sewer runs on the other side of Goshen Presbyterian, and then the other sewer accesses is on Sugg Street and across Woodlawn. So there's a great distance away, and you couldn't get to those sewer locations, is what the evidence before the Board of Adjustment was, from this particular site, which is kind of in the middle and isolated from any connections. And that's why the departure from the typical requirement that you connect the city sewer was approved. It was sort of, the evidence was that it was a hardship, so the Board of Adjustment did approve that request. And since that time, since April, then the applicant has gone to make sure that sewer will work, and what my understanding is, and I think staff's is as well, is it will work for up to 3 houses, and that's part of the reason why the applicant's here with the 3-house request. So that's what we got. I'm happy to entertain any questions, and again, sort of have reserved any cross-examination to try to streamline the process, as Mr. Wilson indicated.
Any other questions? No.
Oh.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Motion to come out of public hearing.
I'll motion.
So move, second.
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Now we need to move to the matter of consider approval. Subdivision required based on the evidence you heard in the record and supplemental document presented by Mr. Russell. I'm going to ask you to identify I'm going to read each of these required findings, and you'll answer by raising your hand in the affirmative. Number 1, the use meets all required principles and specifications of the code and any adopted land use plans. All in favor, raise your hand. That's 5. 2, the proposed plans developed according to the plans submitted and approved will be visually and functionally compatible to the surrounding area. All in favor, raise your hand. Number 3, the use will not materially endanger the public health or safety and will not substantially injure the value of adjoining property located where proposed. All in favor, raise your hand. That's 5 unanimous. Now, if someone wanted to offer motion to approve issuance of a special permit with the proposed conditions added by staff.
So moved.
All second? Second. All in favor, say
Aye.
aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Motion approved.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Very good. Thank you, Barb. Next item on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Approval to increase the Main Street facade enhancement grant budget to remove the metal slip covers and renovate 6 Catawba Street buildings in the River District.
Thank you, Mayor. Our downtown director, Phil Bogan, will present this.
All right, Phil, go get him.
Always last, right? So that's okay. Merry Christmas, Mayor and Council, Adrian, Mr. Attorney. Last month, most of you were down at City Hall where we ranked some really good applications to award $25,000 in our Duke Community Enhancement Grant Program. Belmont Tourism kicked in another $7,500 into the to the mix to help fund some murals in downtown. And then we had 3 facade grants totaling $7,500 to also award for these projects. When the DBDA originally wrote the grant, the priority was to focus on the River District, in particular those 6 buildings that still maintain the metal slip covers, the metal canopies over the sidewalk. Approximately 4.5 years ago, when I started working here, in the CIP budget, was some earmarked funding to enhance the streetscape of the River District, adding the historic light fixtures on both sides of the street, planters, just making Catawba Street look very similar to Main Street.
Right.
Over the years, that has not been able to move forward because of the property owners at that time not wanting to remove the metal slip cover, primarily the canopy that covers up the entirety of the sidewalk. And so now over the years, we've been in communication with those property owners, working towards hoping to one day make this project come to fruition. And so receiving the $25,000 grant from Duke Energy has put us in a great position we've been having conversations with the property owners to actually moving forward to actually, like I said, making this project a reality. So when most of you were in the ranking, we had some really good conversation with some of our design committee members, the DBDA board members, and you over some of these projects. And so there are 6 buildings there. The 2 cost estimates came in higher than anticipated. And so in awarding the possible amount of money that we had, the 3 facade grants, along with the Duke Energy grant, was just not going to be enough to make the project feasible. The property owners were going to have to come out of pocket a lot more than we originally anticipated. And so in that conversation with you, we talked about it would be great if we could increase the facade grant amount so that each one of the 6 buildings would be eligible for a facade grant of $2,500 and a Duke Energy grant in $2,500 for each building, making the project a little more feasible for buy-in for the property owners. In that conversation, we also talked about if the DBDA would contribute more to the project. In the last month's board meeting, the DBDA unanimously voted to contribute $13,000 to remove the metal slip cover and the metal canopy. That was the lower bid that came in to actually remove, that metal skin, exposing the brick facades of the building. Because that's really what we need to do first. I think the bids came in a little higher because it's really hard to know what's there until you remove the metal slip cover. So the DBDA did vote unanimously to approve $13,000 to remove the metal slip covers in hopes that because of the conversations that we had that day, that City Council would potentially kick in another $7,500 so that we could award each one of the 6 buildings a facade grant and a Duke Energy grant. So immediately after the meeting, Councilman Sooks wrote an email, copied all of you, to Jared, asking was this even possible where we were at with the budget. And so Jared responded with 2 potential scenarios, and I grabbed the wrong sheet. And so in short, I don't want to have to read. I don't think I need to read this word for word. Maybe just a quick summary. But Jared said yes, this is possible to do with either a budget transfer within the existing budget. And Adrian, maybe chime in if you need to help correct. Within the budget where we've already approved funding, whether in the Main Street or another section elsewhere, if there's monies that could transfer to the Main Street budget to cover the $7,500, that's doable. The second option was for council to approve a budget amendment appropriating a fund balance to increase the Main Street budget and then by $7,500 to award the additional facade grants. Then at the end of the fiscal year, with any remaining monies, those could then be transferred back into the balanced fund to replace the $7,500.
Is there a preferred, just real quick on that one, is there a preferred one, transfer versus a budget amendment?
I haven't had a chance to talk to Jared about this because he's been busy with the audit, but I think that this, it's still pretty early in the fiscal year, and so I would prefer to, if you want to approve this, to approve the funding, and have Jared and the manager work on the best way. For $7,500, most likely we'll be able to just transfer it within the existing budget and not need to dip into fund balance for it, but without. Right. That's not really my call.
Yeah,
Jared is not feeling well today, so he is not here with us.
Okay.
So TBD on that one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, just to be clear, the businesses are still contributing funds to this.
Yes, they would still be contributing significantly.
Okay.
Because out of the two projects, I think the lower bid was $74,000. The other exceeded $100,000. And so even if the DBDA would go ahead and remove the metal slip covers at $13,000, and then we award each of the 6 buildings $5,000. So that's really like $43,000 out of the minimal bid of $74,000. So yes, each of the property owners will be contributing toward the project.
So
overmatching what we're providing.
Just a few comments that I wrote down. First of all, thanks to the DBDA upping the ante for that to get this done. I think this is needed. I think it's something that's going to benefit the community. We've all talked about investments outside of Main Street, and this is one of the top priorities I think some of us have talked about, and this is a prime opportunity to do so. And honestly, for the price, I don't think it's that much to really be kind of vision changing. We will change that entire facade potentially for the benefit for our area. So I strongly support this. And I appreciate Phil and the DBDA bringing this up and having the vision for this. So thank you.
Make a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks, Phil.
We appreciate all your hard work. Next, we have reports.
Congratulations. Oh, wait, hold on. I assume motion to approve with Adrian and
to the TBD to versus the transfer or a budget.
Yes.
Okay.
All
right.
Yeah.
Just to Jared's discretion.
Okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor. The next section for the meeting are reports. You've got draft minutes from the Environmental Sustainability Board from their meeting on November the 15th, from the Historic Preservation Advisory Committee from their meeting on November the 9th, and the Planning and Zoning Board for their meeting on November the 17th. And as we just mentioned, our Finance Director, Jared Piles, is under the weather, so he is not here to present. So I will do my very best to present the information that he provided to us on Friday, and this is still accurate as of today. We started the meeting talking about the audit for 21. The good news is the financial statements are being finalized, and the plan is for Martin Starr to submit them to the Local Government Commission on December the 9th, which is this Friday. We'll note that, make sure that I say this correctly. So when Jared started, a year ago, we were 2 years behind on our audits. When we submit the fiscal year 21 audit on Friday to the LGC, that means we move on to 22. The fiscal year 22 audit is due legally on November. The hard deadline is November 30th of 2022. On December the 9th, we will have gone from 2 years behind to 9 days behind. Now, we still have to do the 22 audit, but the good news is that Jared was here for that whole, or for the vast majority of that time. So everything should go much smoother for the 22 audit than the 21 audit or the 20 audit.
And just a quick comment on that. The only thing that was really outstanding from that perspective is just the audited financials for the previous year, right? He's pretty much got everything locked and loaded.
Yes, yes. And since he and his staff have worked on 2 audits this year, they know what Martin Starnes is looking for, and they've got the format down pat, and they're ready to go, and everything's ready to submit.
It's a big thank you to Jared and his team.
Yes. He and his team have done a fantastic job. So the plan is for Martin Starnes to submit the audit on this Friday, and then present their findings of the audited financial statements and any findings to you at your workshop on December the 19th. That's a new requirement for audits to be presented with findings to you. In the past, the audit presentations have really just been about the results of just presenting the financial statements. So they will get into more of the details on that, but present that to you on the 19th. And then hopefully with an engagement letter for fiscal year 22 audit. And they have told us they will not start that in December because of the holidays, and they've gone through audit season, so they need a little bit of time off, but they will get started in January with the goal to complete the 22 audit in March so that we could go to the LGC hopefully by May.
Hey, maybe when they come, you know, like those things that we have to fill out and sign, like, do we know anything about, well, you know, can they bring those with them and we can just sign them?
Not on the 19th,
Not on the
because
19th.
they will not have started the 22 audit.
Okay, I'm just trying to streamline.
Yes.
And with March, I mean, that was the intended date that we had talked about for the past couple of months, even with the DBDA audit, correct? Isn't that correct?
Yes. So we are on track. And now that we know that the DBDA needs to be audited or needs to be included, Phil and his team have been working on that, and we will be ready. So that was sort of a curveball that we were thrown at the very end of 21. Now we know it, so we'll be more prepared for that for 22. I don't believe we've received a new pay application from Edifice since the last council meeting. We did pay that, so again, you've approved a project for $13.6 million. We've paid $8.6 million, so there's $4.5 million left to go. Cash flow, this is the analysis that Jared has compiled. You see we are still fine. Our cash available, projected cash on hand it does decline over time. And you see by May, which is our goal to have the funding approval from the LGC, we are still fine on this. As we've mentioned, November, December, and January are big months for property tax revenue collection. Our sales tax is coming in slightly ahead of what we projected for this year, so our projected cash flow is still positive for this, so we are able to cash flow the project and still maintain all of our operations. So if you have any questions for Jared, he'll be happy to answer them when he gets back in the office.
Good.
So thank you to Jared and all the folks in the finance department and Kevin for all your help on getting this done. You made a trip to Hickory to
Thank God.
talk. It's been a lot, but we're getting there. So for the manager's report, you'll hold a special meeting this Wednesday, the 7th at 4 o'clock in this room to hear a conceptual master plan for the redevelopment of several downtown properties, the Ruth Stowe property, and several others between her property and Main Street. That meeting, as all of your special meetings, is open to the public. Will be live streamed because this will be a project that will certainly draw some interest. We've let the planning board and the Main Street boards know about this meeting, and so hopefully interested parties will come and hear. This is just a conceptual plan. it's not ready to be submitted for any sort of approval, but it's just a sort of starting the discussion of what could happen there on those properties.
Just a quick one on that. Are we able to get some, maybe ahead of time or maybe afterwards, some feedback from the Main Street Board and the representatives on kind of what their vision is? Because again, I think this is going to be really key to have all parties at the table working together.
I think that's a great idea.
Thank you.
I think given this, it's not a large project in terms of what you're used to seeing, but it's downtown, so it's 10-ish acres downtown. I think it's going to be important to get feedback from the Main Street program and the Planning Board and probably Environmental Sustainability Board. There needs to be a lot of engagement on this project. As we just mentioned, you hold a workshop on the 19th. I know that's close to Christmas, but you really need to hear the audit. So please be here at 4 o'clock. Barry, you've got a workshop on the 19th. So, yes. So make sure I'll tune in remotely to watch that. Christmas is coming, so our offices are closed on Friday the 23rd and Monday the 26th, as well as Monday, January 2nd for the New Year's holiday, which, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, pushes your Barry, your January council meeting will be January the 9th, not the 2nd. So this will be my last council meeting, so thank you, Mayor and Council, for all your work in the last 15 years total, but last almost 7 as your manager. And certainly to Doug Gadd and Ron Folk and Ryan Schrift, who was on the council when they hired me. I'm not going to say much because I'm going to start crying. But thank you, staff. I appreciate all that you've done. We've done a lot in the last 6 years, and
yeah,
y'all mean a lot. And I really, truly appreciate it. Y'all have just been wonderful. So thank you for all you've done.
We're going to miss
Thank you. I will still sell beer at Friday Night Live next year.
Oh, and hey, you can come to meetings and sign up for public comment and complain about stuff.
Yes, and I will get on Facebook now and complain about everything that y'all are doing wrong. And I'm going to join BNN. Yes, I can do that. Okay. So, Mayor, that's all I have for the manager's report.
We're going to miss you, Adrian.
Thank you.
We're going to really miss you.
Thank you.
You've been a good city manager.
I appreciate that.
We appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Other business. Mark.
Oh, I've got to thank you to Adrian for your years of service to the city and wish you the best at Gastonia.
I have several things. One, when we are moving Parks and Rec and all the stuff over to the warehouse, my understanding is the art guild and KBC were impacted, so we need to be really careful about that because we're trying to benefit a private business and affecting our 501c3s in a negative way. So I don't want that to happen. Possibly need to be careful. Our public works people need to move the big ornaments back. It concerns me and it concerns citizens. The downtown development people had to do that. I'm sure that there's a lot of work that the public works people have done, but we discussed since we did not add a position that there have to be some part-time help at different times. So I'm very concerned. If it's possible, I'd rather the public works employees move that back just because of the efficiency of it. But you guys discussed it, but I'm concerned. We have talked a whole lot about transparency and it concerns me about professional courtesy. When I published the editorial we're gonna have people call the LGC and auditors, that kind of thing, and publish anything other than just basics, we need to all be apprised of that particular situation. The other thing we're noticing too, we actually have board members who are making derogatory comments about the council and the staff, and we need to, I think, figure out some policies and procedures for our board members, because this is not professionally appropriate, nor is it professionally courteous.
Right.
And also, if we do not let each other know all that we are doing, it makes Charlie's job unduly stressful, because he's trying to present a positive image of the city, and he's hearing from other people what we as individuals have done, and he doesn't know about it. It puts undue stress on him, and that's not appropriate. The hospital intersection, continue to work on that. They at least now know there's 3 different parties involved, and of course we're still a year out, so I'm getting an update. In fact, like up to 50 years of the meeting. So we're continuing to hopefully make some better situations there. Habitat for Humanity did their groundbreaking for the 6 houses. I don't think they really let us know, and I happened to be there because they announced it at church. So we have a little bit of a communication lack there, and I will address that with Peyton because it does concern me. As we switch over and Barry, you're looking at this, we still need an appraisal for the Finster property so that we can figure out whether we can do something about that. The other item is not something we can fix, but we have a problem with the Harris Teeter and Chick-fil-A area and the middle school students. They are running wild. They are riding on the scooters in Harris Teeter, but they won't make an issue of it because this is their customer stuff. Chick-fil-A has had to hire an off-duty retired policeman to police the Chick-fil-A area. We can't fix it, but it really concerns me that we have children, students that are giving us what I consider to be a negative reputation. So just so you're aware of it, there's nothing that we can do about it, but as a teacher, it really upsets me that we have kids running wild. It has nothing what's going on.
I don't know. I'm just asking. Is that a conversation we could have with the school board?
I actually called the middle school, but once those kids are off,
It's
they're not going to
nothing to do.
I did at least bring it to their attention that it's not going to happen. And last but not least, I'm the longest serving member of this council. I'm not calling myself a senior member, so I'm not going that far. But Adrian and I have been here about the same amount of time, and we have weathered lots of storms, Adrian, and I really appreciate you. And you don't have speed dial anymore, but basically that's what it has been over a number of years. So I really appreciate working with you, and the fact that we've had a lot of laughs, and we've also had some times we've almost cried. So we've still made lots of progress, but thank you very much for all your efforts.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to say a few things here. First of all, I appreciate you, Adrian, what you've put up with. It's been a tough year. Toughest year we've ever had. And sometimes you get new blood, but we got to get along together. We have to get along together. If we don't get along and we don't go backbiting and stuff like that, then we're going to be okay. But if we support each other and we understand what's going on, then we'll be a lot better off. A lot better off. No question about it. Like Martha said, I've been on a lot of pressure with this stuff going on here. And we just have to treat each other as human beings. Don't go behind somebody's back and do things. It's just not right. It's not right. Not the right thing to do. And I'm afraid we're losing our city manager because of that right there. You've had about enough of it. About enough of it. And I just want to say that it's all in God's hands, that we have to treat each other with respect. Everybody has to do that. If we don't do that, don't go behind somebody's back and do things, we're in trouble. Big trouble. As a city, we're in trouble. So let's try to straighten it out and be kind to each other and not do things that are going to be detrimental to the city. Thank you.
I want to talk about goats. No, I've actually had two people come up to me within the last month. Remember that goat ordinance we were gonna talk about? I know we've had more important zoning issues, but I still want to make sure that that's on the radar, because I have had two people come up to me. It's like, what are you gonna do about, are you gonna let us have goats? Are you gonna? I just wanted to raise that. Hey, did you see the Duke Energy denied our location for the EV charging station? I just wanted to bring that up and wonder what we're going to do about that, just so that we're all aware. At least that's what was in the Environmental Sustainability Board minutes. So that's something to keep our eye on. They didn't like it in where was it, in the parking lot?
Glenwood.
Yeah. Apparently they didn't like that. So just be aware of that, because that was news to me.
They should have to sit through the next meeting where we decide where to put it.
Yeah, it's true. I have had a couple people raise an issue with the signal timing at the light by Belmont Middle School and what's going to be realigned Bellwood Drive. So I know in the past when we've had signal timing issues, I don't know if there's anyone at the Department of Transportation or something, but I felt like we addressed it with someone, whether they. Okay. Well.
Don't we still have the issue too near the high school at the intersection with the Chick-fil-A and the high school there?
Yeah, they don't have those timed properly. Every time the power goes off, then they have to get reset. And it's not their paper a lot. But when I call about this other out,
Okay.
that we brought that up tonight.
Okay, good. Thank you. I hate to, but I would like an update on the Southern Homes case. And so even if it's a short closed session, because obviously that's probably not something we can talk about in open session, but I'd like, if we can add it on to the workshop, just to get an update and see what's what and where we want to go. One other thing, obviously I'd like to thank Adrian for all of his service to the city, and I've enjoyed working with you these last 3 years. I also want to thank Chad for all he's done and wish him luck in his new job, as well as Shelley, who will still be with us through January, but having worked with Shelley all the way back to the time I was appointed to the planning board, I appreciate all of Shelley's efforts as well, and we'll certainly miss her. As we've talked about a couple things as you wrap things up, if we had mentioned before a list of an inventory of city properties as we look for potential locations for affordable housing. So if there's time to get that squared away in the remaining time, that would be great. And last but not least, I really hope we can post that city manager job soon, so that if it's not already posted, so that perhaps we can get applications submitted during the holidays, and we can come back in January and maybe schedule some interviews and I don't know, try and hire a new permanent city manager. I'm sure Barry would appreciate that too, probably. So I can we please do that soon? I don't know who's in charge of that, but
I thought y'all were handling that. You didn't want to hire someone.
Well, that's fine, but I didn't. Does that mean by handling it that we have to post the job ourselves? I mean,
because you work with Deborah on.
Okay.
When do you want to do that?
I thought we had.
I thought you were going to review a job description.
I think we had determined. I thought the last conversation was we would look at what Adrian's description was and then go forward with that. I thought that was the last discussion. We would approve the job description that would be posted.
It would be posted.
Yeah, I wanted.
Are you going to do, so what? My suggestion would be that you have some sort of really nice thing that you include, and not just post a job description. Say, see this job description if you're interested, apply.
Well, sure. I mean,
that's what typically, and so that's what the the COG or the league or
Mhm.
the firms that do will have a whole application packet and brochure, so people who aren't from here, don't know everything about it, can see if it's a job and that they're looking for. So it's typically more involved. I mean, you can do as little or as much as you want, but we don't really have that.
Okay. Well,
but I mean, we could certainly post a job description like we do for any other position.
Take it up December
19th.
We're not meeting on the 7th or the 9th.
We're meeting on the 7th, but only to talk about the 19th for that.
Okay. This would be a good workshop discussion. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, then the 19th then, because I've squared away, I think. And, I guess obviously I prefer people not say derogatory things, but in my opinion, that's part that comes with territory, and I don't want to. I'm reticent to regulate people's speeches. It would be nice if they didn't say derogatory things, but I don't. That's part of the job. People are going to say derogatory things about. So I'm just.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like if I decided to say something about you, that's not professional courteous, and I think we need to let our board members know that we support Mr. Cox's courteous. I mean, just civility. So, no, I know we can't do regulations, but I really like them to agree with the situation.
Yeah.
I have nothing further.
And I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, there has to be some professional protocol, although you can't regulate free speech. So, I mean, I don't know.
You can't tell me not to put my editorial there, but just as I did it, I tried to let everybody know. I tried to be very careful about how I said what I said.
I would like to, at this time, thank Adrian, Shelley, and Chad for their service to the city of Belmont. I know each of you are moving on to do other things, and I wish all three of you success in those pursuits. I would like to congratulate Corky and wish him the best as our new Belmont Police Chief. City Council's here for you and staff. To build on that, we did have a great parade. We had a slight hiccup, unforeseen and unpredictable, but we had a great response time. The mayor and myself and Martha were riding in the truck directly behind it and saw it immediately and knew that was a problem. The quick response of the Belmont Fire Department and Belmont Police Department was quick. People were on site quickly and had the fire out and move the vehicle off, and the parade proceeded. I'd say it took 10 minutes maybe for all that to be cleared up, so I appreciate that.
Larry Sprinkle's got to ride with us too.
And he did say previously, we did say that had never happened before.
I would hope not.
Yeah.
And somebody needs like
car first. Congratulations on the response. I really appreciate that. Now, I was out of town when the tree fell on South Main. I heard all about it when I got back. The roads were closed for apparently an extended period of time, which can't be helped. I did notice the other day when I was driving by there, if from where the tree is headed toward town, if you look, you've got another tree there, a smaller tree, which is pressing up against the lines. Similar situation that you had on Ferris a while back, where we had the lines were actually supporting the tree. So we may want to get somebody out there to look at that before that tree gives way and takes out the lines again. On the way here, I have been dodging this pothole for some time, right central by First Presbyterian and Richards, right there. Excuse me, I know that's DOT, but if we have anybody's talking to them, if they want to come patch that pothole, I know I would appreciate it.
I submitted a request online today for that.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay.
The DOT portal.
Yeah, I forgot it was there today, and I centered it just perfectly. So I'd like, hopefully we can get that done. Martha touched on the Bellwood Drive realignment. It's nearing completion. I'm really glad to see that. That was
going to be a DOT project, but somehow ended up in our lap. And, you know, we did what we had to do to get that handled. That was a safety concern with that offset intersection and the kids being able to cross at a true crosswalk. So I'm glad that's complete, and thanks to everybody who had a role in getting that done.
And by the way, not to steal your thunder, Alex, but they took the tree down in front of the old middle school today.
Oh, they
Thank
did?
God.
Like the big old ones?
There was a lot of limbs that are capable of falling on cars.
Oh, didn't
So,
notice.
thank God they
Stole
took
my
that
thunder,
down.
Charlie. That's what I was going to say right there, top of the list. First of all, again, give out some shout outs. Christmas events, the tree lighting ceremony, the parade, awesome events. I talked to Phil a little bit and some of the people. I appreciate all the volunteers. You guys, again, always amaze me of all the great events and things you guys do for the city of Belmont. I really do appreciate it, and it shows. And I've had tons of people, friends coming by, and they'll drive through downtown at night, and they'll look and they'll say, "Oh my God, this is amazing! It's a little Christmas town." I was like, "Yeah, it's our little slice of heaven." So I appreciate that. We don't have to do it tonight because I know it's getting late, but I would like to see how the Shop Local event went, to see a year-over-year comparison, to see if we had more people coming out this year versus last year. Me and Maddie did do a little bit of shopping, Christmas shopping, and we talked to some of the business owners, and they are starting to see slight declining in sales. So I don't know if there's more events we can do for our downtown businesses, well, any businesses to that perspective, but that was a concern that was brought up to me. Finally, I wanted to first thank Scott Wyatt, Ben Henderson, two of our officers that will be going over to the Sheriff's Department for their service to the city of Belmont. Congratulations, Chief Falls. Well deserved. Again, Chad, congratulations to you as well. I know you're not here. And a big, big thank you to both Shelley and Adrian. I really have enjoyed working with you all in this short stint and do appreciate everything you guys have done. That is all I have.
Oh, and before we close, the party tomorrow from 3 to 5, if you don't know about that, to honor Shelley and Adrian, make sure you come. I won't be here till 3:45, but I do have a few things I'm going to say because they need to have some roasting, so 3:45, just expect it, okay?
We get that every month, Martha.
It's not chestnuts over an open fire, right? All right. I want to make a meeting to adjourn?
Second.
All
in
those.
favor say aye.
Aye.